Texas College District Board of Trustees meeting for the 26th of October, 2021. My invocation today will be led by Charlie Hollinger, who plays the allegiance. Bill Levy, I'll lead Texas Pledge.
Pray with me, if you will. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today to do your work, to guide down that road, the path that you have laid out in front of us. Guide and direct our every step and thought. Help us in every way that you can. Show us mercy when we fall short of the goal. Look after our first responders and those people who take good care of us. And the Lord's people said, Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please follow me in honor of the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
We have a quorum present, and this meeting is being recorded, and members of the public may access the meeting at the Texas College website. First item on the agenda is consider approval of the minutes of the regular meeting for the Board of Trustees held on September the 28th, 2021. A copy of that has been provided for you to read ahead. You have a motion? Motion is made.
Second.
Second, any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the chairman's update, an opportunity for members of the public to suggest additional topics for discussion or to address topics of interest with a presentation in 3 minutes. Does anyone like to address the board? Seeing none, just a reminder to the board that we do have the tickets for the 25th annual Thanksgiving meal at Central Texas College. These tickets have already been paid for, so you don't owe a thing. But if you want to bring the donation of canned goods, please feel free to do so. Next item on the agenda is the Chancellor's report.
Thank you, John Weaver. Dr. Grady, if she's coming forward, I had distributed to each of you the service award ceremony, which will be coming up on December 17th. So here's a list of the 10-year recipients, the 15, the 20, the 25, 30, 35, and 40-year recipients. Dr. Grady?
Yes, good afternoon. I am pleased to announce that we received an email a couple of weeks ago from COAMS, and COAMS is the agency that accredits our EMT program. They shared with us that our EMT program has exceeded the expectations that are set for the program. And so there are 3 specific criteria where we're expected to meet 70% at minimum. And we scored 84% on the National Registry EMT, the state written exam that students completed the completion of the program. We are also above 70%. We have a 77.9 on retention, so that's measured from students beginning the program to students completing. And also we scored an 81.7 on positive job placements. So I think a lot of that is really due to the excellent leadership of our health sciences programs under Tammy Samaripa and her very capable faculty and staff that work with our EMT students. Let's see. I think you want me to probably go to the next item. Is that okay?
Yes.
The Texas Transfer Framework Field of Study for Business Admin Appointment. So Dr. Angela Rees, faculty in our business department, has been appointed to serve on the Texas Transfer Framework Field of Study in Business Administration Committee. We submitted a nomination for her through Central Texas College. Dr. Garrett's area did that. And then the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board appointed her to serve on the committee. Of course, that is valuable for us to have a voice at the table and input on courses that relate to business. So thank you in advance to Dr. Reese for her time and dedication to serve on that committee. Those are my updates. Thank you.
And we have a number of faculty members and staff members on committees with the state and national organizations, and it's very important. And considering that most of those committees consist of 6 people, 7 people, out of 50 community colleges, I think we're pretty fortunate. So if you see the faculty and the staff that are on those different committees, please thank them for their work. It's a lot of hard work. It's extra work. Let's see. Videos and pictures. Ms. Merlot.
Okay, standing in for Dr. Garrett. Okay, so in the slideshow, probably you heard something on the news about our Best for Vets award, but the reporter from Channel 5 did an amazing job, and I wanted to play this in its entirety. They usually edit to smaller things, but this is about a 2-minute video. And we also, the chancellor got a nice written congratulations from Brad Buckley, which you see on the left.
Central Texas College has been ranked the second best 2-year college for veterans by the Military Times. 25 News reporter Adam Schindler shows us why in a story that's positively Central Texas.
For decades now, Central Texas College has been a go-to school for veterans and active duty military. Central Texas College officially opened its doors in 1965, and since then they have
for veterans by the Military Times. 25 News reporter Adam Schindler shows us why in a story that's positively Central Texas.
For decades now, Central Texas College has been a go-to school for veterans and active duty military. Central Texas College officially opened its doors in 1965, and since then they have been dedicated to serving the community as well as the veterans and active duty military within. In fact, that dedication to U.S. service members extends well beyond our borders.
We have an overseas program. We're still in Europe. Although Europe is shrinking in size with the military, we still offer programs in Europe, meaning Germany is where the preponderance of them are.
It was in Germany that retired Army veteran and CTC graduate Gary Emmer first began his journey with the school when he was stationed there way back in 1991.
I kid you not, when I was a private, I signed up for a history class with Central Texas College. So this was like 30 years ago. So I was a CTC student when I was a private in 1991.
Emmer went on to serve 21 years in the Army, and after retiring, he chose to go back to CTC and chase his dream of becoming a broadcaster, a dream that has brought him right back to CTC after graduating and seeing their dedication to veterans to become the program director for KMCT-FM, a radio station located on campus.
The whole experience from 1991 until now as an employee here in 2021, 30 years, that's one of the nicest things about working here is because you still got that familiarity as a veteran.
A sense of camaraderie that he missed when he was transitioning out of the military that makes CTC feel like home.
And comfort, and you still got, the sense that the brothers and sisters that you served with are still walking around, even if they might be the children, the brothers and sisters that you served with.
CTC has been rated the second best 2-year college for veterans, a spot the chancellor, who is also a Vietnam veteran, is happy with for now.
It'd be nice to be number 1, but number 2, we like number 2 and continue to strive to be number 1.
Central Texas College has helped to give veterans and active duty military a life outside of uniform for nearly 60 years now, and they're not stopping anytime soon. Including Adam Schiller, 25 minutes.
That's just a really good piece to get there. The next one, I stole this photo, I think it might be a better one, but I'm sure you're also aware that the Chancellor received the Congressional Veteran Award, which was presented by John Carter a few weeks ago. And there were 10 veterans that were honored, and he was one of them. And, you know, a lot of good things that John Carter said, and, you know, of course, the Chancellor said, well, I don't know if I deserve this, and of course he does. So, that was a good one. Also in the news jacket. And then finally, the next two are really Dr. Garrett's area, but she was not able to be here. Transfer Day was put together on a schedule that's given by TACRO, and Eva Hutchins, who's our Enrollment Services Associate Dean, was in charge of that, and there were 38 colleges that came. There were only about 100 students, so each of them were able to see a lot of colleges in one location. And they were very excited to do an in-person event because most other places they're doing virtual, and we participated in a virtual event and they don't work that well as far as getting students income. And then finally, this was a big deal. The library, I don't know how many of you follow on Facebook, but the library has just exploded with programs. Every month they have 3 or 4 programs, and because they're doing them virtually, they're able to get very well-known people. This one was a record for us. This is Lil Joe Hernandez, who, if you don't know, is originally from Temple, and he's very famous with a Grammy. He currently performs with Lil Joey La Familia, and this video on our Facebook page received 5,700 views. So, you know, it was a big deal, and Cindy Oster, who works at the library, is responsible for tracking these people down and getting them to come on our Facebook page. There is one on October 27th called What's Up with Texas Weather. I'm sure no one knows. That's all I have. I think Dr. Eady's next.
You see a picture here of a performance that took place here at the Anderson Campus Center on October 12th. It's a jazz trio that performed. You see the Wade Gerton, the pianist, Connor Kim, drummer and percussion, and Young Hill, the jazz and the bassist. So, great performance. It was open to the public, but it was heavily promoted among students to attend, and they did. So, not sure. I know Dr. Carter and I said together, it was well attended. I think maybe 50 or so people, 50 to 60 probably were there. And so every semester, every spring and every fall, our fine arts department invites a performer to come and to our campus and for the community and certainly for our students to enjoy. Let's see, we had a cake decorating class. So what you see here are students that prepared as part of the midterm Halloween themed cakes. And so of course they had to be creative, and I don't know how well you can see it, but on the left you see one that has I'm not sure what that is, maybe a bat or so on top. And so students had to figure out how to, for example, how to make the wings, how do you make the bat wings? And so they thought of maybe seaweed would work. So they did seaweed and they used food coloring, and so voila, there you bat wings. And so they were extremely creative, and it was not a competition. However, it was a great way for students to show up their midterm, and of course all of us who visited enjoyed tasting the cakes. And this is a reminder that this semester we have the patio lunch cafe going on. This week we have Cajun and Creole cuisine. So again, this is where students prepare a meal. They plan the meal, they prepare it, and they also serve it. So it's in our patio cafe in the student center on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And also a reminder that we have the evening patio cafe. So on Friday we have German cuisine coming up. And the last slide here, you see students rehearsing for a play every semester. Again, we have students that perform a play. This is a student-written play. And you can see they're performing the performance actually to the public that's open is on November 18th through the 20th at 7:30 at the LBJ Auditorium.
Dr. Ady, did you stay there? Dr. Reese just showed up. You might want to introduce her. She was, I think, in the middle of a meeting with the coordinating board. Let you reintroduce.
Yes, absolutely. So I shared with you earlier that we were fortunate enough to not just nominate, to find someone who allowed us to nominate her to be on the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board business field of study, but also someone who committed to that, to serve on the board and to provide input and to share that. And Dr. Reese, thank you so much for doing that. Anything you want to share?
I just wanted to apologize for being late. I was in fact in the meeting from 9 till about 1:05 today. So, and we adjourned about 1:05 and I rushed over and we reconvened tomorrow morning. So we are already busy at work planning for our new field of study degree across the entire state.
When do you teach?
Right after that in between. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ady.
That completes my report, sir.
Thanks, sir. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and consider approval for the September 2021 interim financial statements and investment report. Ms. Glory.
Hopefully you have a copy of these financial statements. Normally when I present the September statements, I almost have absolutely nothing to say. It's 1 month. There's not much you can glean from them. And we're also spending more of our time working on closing out the August books than we are September. However, Mr. Beatty called me yesterday, and he had a question, so he gave me something to talk about. His question was related to the HERF dollars. As he was looking at them, he noticed that there's a large HERF dollar that we were showing that we were going to capture in HERF lost revenue that's proposed for the current fiscal year. However, we've made some decisions about what we're going to do with those funds, and it's a perfect time to share with you what we thought about doing with those funds. As you're aware, the pandemic officially started March, I think the exact date was 13th of 20, and that's when they started awarding CARES dollars retroactively from that date, because it didn't happen until after that. And the lost revenue was available from that point forward, even though for the first 10 or 12 months that we had CARES dollars, there was no discussion of lost revenue. But on the second award, which was CISA funds, the CARISA funds, the first funds were called CARES, the second were called CARISA, the third were called HARP. They're all HERF, Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds. In that second award, they said, well, you could go retroactive and use any money from day one forward towards lost revenue. And what they gave you options as to how you could calculate that number. And since they gave several options, I tried all of the options that they gave us. And they even said you could come up with one of your own if it made sense. So I played with several of them, obviously to find the one that was best for Central Texas College. Our internal auditor looked at it as well as our external auditor, and everybody said, yep, it makes perfect sense. So what you're allowed to do is I created a baseline based upon the previous 5 years prior to the pandemic. And that was my baseline number for tuition and fees and for auxiliary, because those are the two items that are greatly affected by the lost revenue from the lost tuition, lost enrollments. So made that calculation, and now I've been comparing what's actually happened to that baseline. And since the 13th of March 20 till now, if you compare what we've done against our baseline, we've done lost revenue of about $20 million. Now, that's not what we truly lost in revenue, because remember, I'm comparing it to a baseline. And the baseline that I used, some of those years, 5 years ago, were extremely large years compared to even where we were the year or two before the pandemic. So we're comparing against a larger baseline to come up with these dollar amounts. You'll see when the audit is presented to you, the middle of next month, that the bottom line would have been a positive bottom line even without the lost revenue, because even though enrollments are well down, we tightened the belt fiscally, so we were able to keep the bottom line positive. But what we have to deal with is we've got between now and the middle of May to spend all those CARE dollars. I keep calling them CARES because that was the first one, so I apologize. I'll say HERF. Maybe I'll remember to say HERF for the rest of my presentation. I don't want us to risk not spending those dollars by the timeline by waiting and trying to use this entire $9 million that we put in the current budget, because there's a possibility from September 1 through May the 12th, which is when the HERF deadline is, that we don't lose $9 million. There's a possibility that against our baseline we'll lose $7 million. Well, if we've got $9 million left to draw, but we've only got $7 million in lost revenue, the college loses $2 million. I don't want to risk that. Ultimately, when you get the funds, it really doesn't make a major difference to your financial statements. If you draw them all in this year, you're gonna have a great year this year. If you don't draw them this year, then you won't look as good, but you put the two numbers together and the total amount coming to the college is still gonna be the large dollar amount, roughly $20 million that we're gonna have. So what we're gonna do is, when we're ready to start writing the report for the audit and everything's finalized, auditors are happy for everything, I'll make the final calculation of what the lost revenue truly is from the start of the pandemic through the end of the fiscal year, and we're gonna apply all of that we can against the 21 fiscal year books. So we'll make a large draw that we can backdate to August. And what you'll see is the financial statements that are presented for 2021 are probably gonna be the best financial statements the college has had in 15 or 20 years. But it's gonna be primarily made up of HERF dollars that we are awarded from the federal government. So I know this stuff it's confusing enough to me. I'm sure some of y'all are wondering what's going on here. So if anybody wants to have an individual conversation with me, I'd be more than happy to. Bill and I spent quite a bit of time on the phone earlier this week discussing it. It's just that we feel as the administration it's better off to draw that money sooner rather than later for multiple reasons. One of them is not because we're making so much money in interest, because you're well aware we don't make a whole lot of money for having it in our bank. However, it's better to draw it now because the federal government has already changed their mind about 9 times what you can do with that money. And we don't want them to change it to where from this point forward we can't use it for lost revenue, because then we're gonna have a hard time using all the money. And we just, you never know. I don't have a lot of faith in our federal government. I don't have a lot of faith in our state government, and I'll say it out loud. I'll say it with all of them sitting right here in front of me. There's no telling when they're going to change their mind and say they want what you haven't spent back. They can say that tomorrow. The state of Texas has done it to us before, where they've said, hey, we know we awarded this to you. Matter of fact, we awarded it to you a year ago, but we're not going to let you have it now. So I don't want to risk that. So I feel better, the sooner we can draw the money, the better. So we're probably going to have a very large draw that we'll make probably sometime towards the very end of next month, which is when we'll be starting to write the actual report for the audit. So I know that's a lot of information. If I can answer any questions, or as I said, if anybody wants to discuss this in detail individually, I'd be more than happy to.
Any questions of Mr. Liberty?
And I know I almost said nothing about the September financials, so here's what I'll say. It's 1 month, we got a bottom positive line. It's a very small positive line. More to come. we'll be very fortunate to keep the bottom line positive through the rest of the year, because there are some things that we just have to spend this year. We've held off the last few years, and if you'll remember, we put some stuff in the budget that just has to happen this year. So it's gonna be a little tougher, I believe, to keep the bottom line positive this year than it was last year, but thank goodness we have that large buffer that we're gonna draw from last year in lost revenue. Sorry, sir.
If there are no questions, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll say.
Motion made and seconded to approve the financial statement for September. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item is discuss and consider approval of the Texas Materials Group Incorporated to complete asphalt maintenance, repair, and replacement work in the amount not to exceed $600,000. Mr. Armstrong.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. There are several streets that are in need of repair and replacement. We talked about this at the board workshop. The college has a contract with Texas Materials that was procured through a solicitation. The estimated cost of this work is not to exceed $600,000. So administration recommends approval of the Texas Materials Group to complete asphalt maintenance, repair, and replacement work in an amount not to exceed $600,000.
Questions, Mr. Harmon?
So moved.
Motion is made.
Second.
And I hear a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of option number 1 for the contract with Untitled Incorporated for geochemical services for the period December 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2022, in the amount not to exceed $100,000. Mr. Harmon?
Yes, option year 1 needs to be exercised for the Kleinfelder Geotechnical Services contract. We use them for a number of geotechnical services, sampling, inspections, et cetera, throughout campus, especially on a lot of our capital projects. The contract period is December 1st of this coming year through November 30th of 2022. And the first option period is estimated not to exceed $100,000. So administration recommends approval of option year 1 of the Kleinfelder for geotechnical services for the period of December 1st through November 30th of 2022 in the amount not to exceed $100,000.
Any questions of Mr. Harmon? Seeing none, I'll take a motion. Motion made. Seconded.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Well, next item is discuss and consider approval of the fiscal year 2021-22 sponsorship to exceed $2,500. Mr. Samuel?
Good afternoon, Chairman Weaver, Board of Trustees, and Chancellor Yiannopoulos. In accordance with CTC Board Document number 427, the CTC Board of Trustees provides sponsorship funds for events, projects, and activities selected at the beginning of each fiscal year. Community partners, nonprofit organizations, and service clubs submit funding requests. The CTC Sponsorship Committee evaluates these requests, and the CTC Board of Trustees approves the amount of $2,500 or greater. Today, we're requesting your approval of 4 sponsorships recommended by the Sponsorship Committee. Again, the requests exceed $2,500 and require CTC Board approval. The 4 organizations provide Central Texas College with publicity, advertising, and they highlight CTC's contributions in their newsletters and on their websites to their memberships. The first one is Advent Health. Request is for $3,000. The Sponsorship Committee recommends the Gold Star Gala on Thursday, November the 4th, 2021 at the Killeen Civic and Conference Center. The Sponsorship Committee recommends a bronze level at $3,000 and this sponsorship includes a reserve table of 8 and CTC listing in their printed materials. The next one is the Central Texas Business Resource Center, and that's for $30,000. The amount is paid in 2 payments to the Greater Killeen Chamber of Commerce and the Workforce Solutions of Central Texas through an MOU. The next one is Harker Heights Chamber request for $2,500. The sponsorship committee recommends sponsoring the Chairman's Circle membership at the gold level. The benefits at the gold level include priority seating and chamber events, signage at events, and visibility in the newsletter. The last one is the Killeen Independent School District Foundation request, and it's for $3,000. The sponsorship request is for the Distinguished Alumni and Student Scholarship Reception and awards ceremony to honor post-KIC students who have majority impacted their communities after high school graduation. The sponsorship committee recommends this request using the Anderson campus on Thursday, March 24th, 2022, from 10 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. This includes setup and cleanup time. The $3,000 is for Great Western Dining Services to provide light food and refreshments for up to 350 people. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Senator? I'll take motion.
Move to approve.
The motion been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is discuss consider approval of the board resolutions to nominate a candidate for appointment to the Bell County Tax Appraisal District. Mr. Knowles.
Yes, sir, as discussed at the, the board workshop last week, we received a letter to nominate somebody to serve in that capacity with the Bell County Tax Appraisal District. Last year, we were approached, and Mr. Towers asked if there was a requirement that we do that and serve, and there is no requirement. And Mr. Pierce, I think, stated that they had to be an elected official. So the recommendation is yours as to whether you want to nominate someone for that board or not.
You don't have a recommendation.
No, sir.
Does any board member have a recommendation? Mr. Hollinger, would you be interested in doing this?
My plate is getting pretty full lately. I think I'll pass for this biennium.
I'd like to recommend the chair to serve in that role if you would.
I can do it if nobody else wants to, but I've done it before.
I don't think I'm standing in line, and you have that experience too.
It's not a pervasive action. You don't have a whole lot of authority or power, you just make a recommendation.
I'd like that form of motion.
Motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So be it.
I will notify Mr. White.
The next item is discuss and consider approval of change to the November board meeting to November 30th. That would be the week after Thanksgiving. And the December board workshop and our meeting to December the 14th. The proposal that I talked with Mr. Monopolis about would be to have the December 14th meeting start at 11 o'clock for the workshop, followed by lunch, followed by a 1 o'clock board meeting. That is acceptable to everyone, and we'll entertain a motion to do that.
Would you repeat that?
Well, the meeting for the 30th of November will be the week after Thanksgiving. Rather than have a meeting the week of Thanksgiving, we'll just put it off to the next week, if that's acceptable. Yes, sir.
So the workshop will be
On the
Workshop is the week
16th.
before Thanksgiving.
the 16th and the 30th?
No, 9th.
Right.
I'm sorry.
23rd?
16th.
16th and 30th.
Yes.
16th of November would be the workshop. And then we'll skip a week and have the board meeting on the 30th, which would be the week after Thanksgiving. As a convenience type thing, it's kind of hard to sandwich everything in for Thanksgiving week. Some people are out of town and so forth. The other part of the question is what happens in December. In December, it's a compressed month also because the college shuts down for the holidays for 2 weeks. So my proposal would be that we meet on December the 14th at 11 a.m. for the workshop, followed by lunch, followed by a 1 o'clock board meeting. That gives us an opportunity to discuss anything that's on the agenda, make some discussion about it, and then come back an hour later and vote on it. And it's kind of compressed again, but on the other side of the coin, there's a lot of things going on in December, and I know that it's hard to realize it's right around the corner, so we need to make some decisions on that. So that's the recommendation. Does that answer the question?
Is a motion necessary?
So a motion is necessary.
I shall vote.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Next item is recommending topics for upcoming agenda items, announcements by the board members. Start with Lloyd.
No, sir. No. I'd just like to make an observation about this document that was produced by our chancellor and staff. It's one of the finest, brief, succinct presentations we've had in a while, and I want to applaud that. Good.
Next item on the agenda is announcement of time and location of the board workshop scheduled for Tuesday, November the 16th, 2021 at 1 p.m. And at this point, I'll call for an executive session. Call the meeting back to order. The executive session was conducted and no decisions were made. The announcement of the chair, the board relative to executive session, the vote being necessary, and the board was result of the executive session, and like I said, there's nothing to report. The next item on our agenda is adjournment, and if there's no objection, we stand adjourned.